Bad light, no matter what pose you've got going on, no matter how cool your movie is, you got sucky lighting, it's just gonna look bad. Welcome back. Today we're talking about 3 ways to streamline your video making. So if you're a new YouTuber or you're getting into videography or you've already been doing it for a while, this more applies to people that are recording themselves or just recording others starting out. When you're recording video, there's a lot of different things you got to think about compared to photography. You know, with photography, you shoot a picture in RAW. Sometimes your lighting's perfect. You want it to be as perfect as possible. Sometimes it's not. But thanks to RAW, you have a lot of freedom to do corrections of the shadows, of the highlights, all that crazy stuff that we can do today. Photoshop, all this stuff. With video, not so much. I feel like with video, if you're not shooting with a cinema camera, you have to get it as close as perfect as you can in camera so that you don't mess around with the footage too much. Sometimes dynamic range limit on certain camera models or the codecs you're using, like all these variables can change how your video is gonna look in the end after you post-process. So you don't always wanna lift the shadows in a video so much, you know, to then ruin it and see the grain. So this is more for those of you who are starting off recording yourselves, recording others in more controlled environments. Tip number 1, you don't need to use a picture profile. Now, don't get me wrong. If you want to use one, go for it. It will teach you a lot about color grading, processing the footage. There's tons of people out there with great profiles that you can use. If you're a Sony user, you know, we've got HLG, we've got S-Log2, S-Log3. It's endless. Fuji, you know, they all have their Cine Log profiles. They give you flexibility to do editing, to do the post-processing, add the color, you know, change the look. However, if you're looking for something straightforward, out of the box, just simplifying your process, you need, for example, a headshot, video, an interview, kind of like what I'm doing right now. You don't really need a picture profile. You can just use the standard profiles that are already in your camera. It's straightforward. You're picking between -3 and up to +3 on contrast, saturation, and sharpness. On this video that I'm recording and all the ones I've done, the only thing I've done is put I think +1 contrast, +1 saturation. Sharpness I usually leave neutral because you don't want to sharpen too much because then it looks a little fake. But anyway, out of those 3 straightforward picture settings that you can do without having to dig into, oh, what black level, what red number we're looking for, what color space are we playing with. You can circumvent all of that if you're doing a straightforward video like this. Of course, like I said, if you really want to and you want to learn and be prepared for different environments that are not controlled, of course, use the picture profiles. But if you're not, no point in wasting your time when you can get awesome colors these days right out of the camera without having to play with it much. Tip number 2, lighting. I think it is the most important because everything we do in photography or videography depends on light. Bad light, no matter what pose you've got going on, no matter how cool your movie is, you got sucky lighting, it's just gonna look bad. So you gotta invest in a proper continuous LED light or a battery powered one. It could be battery powered or DC, AC, whatever outlet plug-in, you know what I'm talking about. You need the proper lighting to be evenly lit so that you're not struggling with environment lights. You know, like I have the room light right here. That's a very warm color. I've got a window here that's really cool, or depending on the time of day, the light might bounce different. Like I can get a lot of messy lighting, but because I have this strong light near me with a diffuser, it's actually an octagon umbrella, I am balanced in lighting. I have the proper shadows, at least the way I want to look. And it's lighting my background. So when I go into post-production, I'm just worried about cutting my clips, putting my B-roll, not so much correcting my colors, because it can be a pain if in your video you are suddenly going from warm to cool and you're trying to match those colors. Like when especially if you're in auto, if you're trying to match the colors of your environment, it's just complicated. Putting one strong light that's the dominant light in the room at the color temperature you want, that's the way to go so that you can keep it as straight out of camera as possible. Tip number 3, your white balance. Yes, you need to, once you set your light, you need to see what color light balance you need to be at to match that light. Otherwise, if you leave it on auto, like I said, I have 2 light sources aside from this light here. One is there, that's warm, and one is here, which can shift from warm to cool. I have the mono light here, the LED at sunlight temperature, 5700 Kelvin. By setting my camera to that mode, it is going to ignore everything else, and it's not gonna distortion the colors that are right here. Basically the subject, your face, your shirt, everything that's in your background. Your camera won't be struggling, because if you have it on auto, it'll be shifting. If you put the wrong one, it's gonna look funky. It's just adding more work to the post-processing time. Just put the right auto white balance, get the proper light, straight out of camera, good to go. Finally, I'm gonna add a bonus. This is number 4. 4th tip, just do it. If you've got all these components, you just record yourself. You know, you gotta take that first step to explore, make mistakes, and correct them. So by taking some footage and reviewing it later, you can determine, like, you can figure out what looks good, what doesn't look good, like what's your style. So in the next videos that you make, you can adjust, you know, so that you can improve on your craft. Well, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. I've been meaning to make it because over time that I've been learning, I was forcing myself to do color correction, to do all these different tweaks, get all these LUTs and change the styles. But when in reality, the most practical thing when you're doing something like I'm doing right now, or an interview, or there's other scenarios, straight out of camera is just so great not to have to do all that extra work if you don't have to. Thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed.